Hey guys, it's me, Calla, and today I will be reviewing a movie called Song of the Sea. This is a beautiful, mythical movie that is filled with symbolism. And even though it is technically a kids' movie, there's something that audiences of all ages can get out of it. It was Academy Award nominated for the Best Animated Feature Film in 2015, so it's gotta be real good. With that said, let's dive in, shall we? So first things first. Song of the Sea was written by Tom Moore, who previously made the animated film The Secret of Kells, and it was released in December 2014. It is a very Irish film, which is evident in the characters, setting, music, and art style. It is set off the coast of Ireland in the autumn of around 1987, and you'll be able to tell that this takes place in the 80s if you pay close attention to little details, such as the old radio in Granny's house, the Rolling Stones posters in Connor's old bedroom, and you can see Ben listening to music with a Walkman. This movie's plot revolves around the Celtic legend of the Selkies, people who can shapeshift into seals when they are in the sea, so long as they are wearing their sealskin coat. Without it, they cannot become seals and return to the sea. The sea is their true home, so they will almost never be fully satisfied if they are separated from it. There are two major Selkie characters to keep in mind in this film: Brona, the mother, and Saoirse, the daughter. So here is a brief summary of the film. You start out with a little boy, Ben, his very pregnant mother, Brona, his father, Connor, and his puppy best friend named Coo, who live in a lighthouse on a small island. One night, Brona gives Ben her magic seashell, with which you can hear the song of the sea, and only a Selkie can play it. But that night, the time comes for the baby to be born. Brona abruptly runs away and is never seen again. Her exact reason is unclear, but we do see her hair turn white as she's leaving. We'll come back to this later. So anyway, this leaves a huge negative impact on the family, especially Connor, who becomes a very distant and bitter man. 6 years later, Ben and Coo are grown up, and the baby that was born of Brona is a little girl named Saoirse, who can't talk at all. And she seems to have a very particular draw to the sea, as the seals have a particular draw to her. Now Ben hates his sister. He blames the loss of his mother on her existence, and she also receives all of their father's attention. On Saoirse's 6th birthday, the grandmother, Connor's mother, visits the island. Now she is bent on having the kids leave the island and move to the city with her, claiming they're not safe here in this awful place that is full of sadness and bad memories. That night, Saoirse takes Ben's magic seashell, which she has been eyeing for some time, and starts to play, almost by instinct, the Song of the Sea. It unleashes magic that lures her through the house, and it brings her to find a shining white fur coat that fits her perfectly. She is then lured out to sea, where the seals are waiting for her. She swims out to them, and she turns into a gleaming white seal. But in the middle of the night, somehow, Granny senses she's gone. She calls Saoirse away from the sea. When she washes up to the shore, Granny rushes her inside. She argues with her son that his children are definitely not safe here, and they need to live somewhere else. So in the morning, they pack up to move to the city. But the night before, Connor finds Saoirse's silky coat on the floor and rehides it, claiming he can't lose her too. And he tosses the chest and key into the sea. Ben, of course, does not want to move. He wants to stay with Coo, whom Granny won't bring along. Now living at Granny's house, Ben and Saoirse are bored. Saoirse misses the sea dearly. She still has the magic shell, so she does what she can to find her coat wherever it may be, but at times she fails miserably. Coo is back at home, and Ben misses him dearly, so he decides to run back home, and Saoirse sees him and follows. But little do they know, Saoirse's playing of the magic shell has awakened the world of the Dee-Nishi, who are fairy people from Celtic legend. Some of them find Saoirse and take her off of Ben's course for home, so now Ben must take responsibility and get her back on track. But Ben does lots of learning along the way. he learns that the stories his mother told him when he was young are all true. He learns his sister, just like his mother, is really a Selkie. And as he journeys with Saoirse, she starts to fall very ill. And, as we saw in Brona at the start of the film, her hair starts turning white. So now it's clear that the whole white hair thing is a sign of declining health and nearing death. Therefore, returning home isn't just about getting back to Ku. It's about saving Saoirse's life, as well as the lives of all of the Sidhe. Fortunately, Ku had gone after them and finds them on their way back, so they have some good company. But eventually, Saoirse gets lost trying to find her own way back to her Selkie coat and gets abducted by the owls of the dreaded Maka, the Owl Witch. It's up to Ben to get her back. So Ben finds the hidden home of Maka and works up the courage to go in, expecting a fearsome, monstrous witch, but actually finding not much more than a calm old woman accompanied by owls. Maka and her owls have the power to turn people into stone by sucking all their feelings out of their being. She even did it to her own son, MacLear the Giant, in order to cease his suffering. Maka is half-turned herself. It doesn't take long for Ben to find Saoirse locked away, also half-turned to stone. He sees how weary and sick she is, and deeply apologizes for the way he's treated her. He gives Saoirse the shell, knowing that only she can play it. With it, she frees every single feeling that Maka has bottled up inside, literally, and overcomes her with her own emotions. She also frees herself from her stone casing, but then her shell shatters, and she is now near death. Maka, now being restored to her emotions, has a clear view of reality again, so she sends out spirits to bring Ku, Ben, and Saoirse home rapidly. In moments, they whiz through the city, up and down the countryside, across the sea, back to the lighthouse. Ben must now face his father, which will be very hard for him because he is still very absorbed in mourning the loss of his Selkie wife to the sea, and making sure he doesn't also lose his Selkie daughter in the same way. When Connor finds Saoirse, his first impulse is, get her to the hospital. So he pushes a small boat into the sea to row across to the mainland. Ben knows that there is no time. She needs her coat, or she'll die. He sees the lights below the sea and dives in. That's when he, with the help of the seals, brings Saoirse's coat back up out of the depths. Saoirse is reunited with her coat and says her first word, Ben. They are then tossed out of the boat, and they witness Saoirse's transformation into a seal, and the other seals join them as they ride the waves of the sea. They wash up on a small rocky island and discover, to their dismay, Saoirse still has not healed. The shell is gone. They realize that Saoirse must sing the Song of the Sea. Ben teaches her the first few words, the words that his mother taught to him. Saoirse then sings the entire rest of the song on her own, and becomes enveloped in light and magic as she is restored and sings her beautiful song. And I love these seals. They're just like, bro, what is going on? And all of the fairies trapped in the human world are also restored. As they all go home to the spirit world across the sea, Saoirse ends the song. Connor and Ben then see a spectacular sight, the unexpected return of Brona. But she takes Saoirse's hand and prepares to lead her away with her to the spirit world. Ben and Connor beg her to let Saoirse stay, and she says that since Saoirse is half human, she may stay if she takes her coat away. Then she could remain with them as a fully human girl. So the coat disappears, and then Brona says her final goodbyes to her family. Then she leaves. Upon their return to their home, Connor, Ben, Saoirse, and Ku are met by Granny, who is worried sick. But Connor assures his mother that everyone's okay and will remain that way. So the film ends on a very bittersweet note, but it's all satisfying in the end. Before the credits, Ben, Saoirse, and Ku are shown swimming together in the sea with all the seals. So this is a very mythological movie, very clever in the way it depicts the way old legends and modern culture clash with each other. And it is filled with symbolism all the way through. Many of the characters are obviously paired up with each other in symbolism, and it is meant to be obvious as they are voiced by the same actors and look very similar. First off, Connor and McLear. Both look very much the same. Connor is a very big, strong, heavy-set lighthouse keeper. McLear is a great giant. They both have golden blonde hair, beards, peachy-ish skin, and blue eyes. And they both have suffered a very hard loss, and that is where Granny and Maka come in. Both are old women, and they have the same owl-like face shape. They have a taking towards birds, and just want what's best for the family, even if sometimes that causes them to do the wrong things. Their sons were both suffering uncontrollable grief due to a hard loss, and so they, in a sense, just urged them not to feel anymore. They did it in different ways. Maka did it more literally by turning McLear into so gray a stone figure that he was classified as an island. Granny didn't turn Connor into stone literally, but he turned to stone figuratively as he refused to feel and bottled up his feelings the way Maka did. And when Connor is at the bar on his wife's anniversary, he looks just like the island of McLear. The third and final character symbolism is in two characters who I haven't yet touched on. Dan and the Great Shanaki. Dan is a ferryman, pun intended, and he is the one who drives Granny's car across the sea so she can go to and from her son's lighthouse. And since he goes back and forth from the lighthouse to the mainland, he's able to keep up with gossip and events on both sides. He knows Connor and is acquainted with his kids, and when he meets Granny, he asks about them. But Granny is a stubborn woman and doesn't even look at him, so he calls her the old witch. See, more Granny symbolism there. Now the Great Shanaki, or Great Storyteller, has long hair. And when Ben encounters him, he tells him that each of his hairs holds a story about the fairy folk, including the Selkie and McLear. So he, just by being who he is, keeps up with the stories and events that happen in the fairy world, just like Dan in the human world. There is also a lot of symbolism in the names of the Selkies in this movie. The name Brona roughly means sorrow in Gaelic, so her name is, besides beautiful, very fitting for her since she is the main cause of all the sadness in this film. The name Saoirse in Gaelic means freedom, which is a very fitting name for this girl because she is the one who gives freedom in her song to all of the Sidhe, and in a sense, she also brings her family freedom from the sadness that hung over them because of Brona. But wait, there's more. If you pay close attention to them, you will take notice of their shadows. They are shaped just like their seal selves, which sort of serves as a reflection of their alternate identities. So that is all I have. I hope you enjoyed this video and learned something new about the movie. If you haven't, I would encourage you to check out Song of the Sea for yourself. It is a great film that had a lot of effort put into it, a perfect blend of culture and art. So that's all I have for you guys. See you around.